Welcome to the Single Digit Body Fat Series.
Strength is never weakness, weakness is never strength.
Figure out a way to just be less fat. And you know what that means.
What in the will happen if I go all in on this? Today I'm going to tell you how to get ridiculously shredded. The greatest thing that happened in nutrition in a long time is the carnivore diet. However, you're not losing any weight and you're on the carnivore diet. So what gives? What's going on? What has happened here? Why are some people, in fact, even gaining weight on the carnivore diet? Now, I should say, before this video starts, I'm Mark Smelly-Bell, I'm your host, and welcome to the Single Digit Body Fat Series. But I also want to say, it's not everyone's goal all the time to lose weight, but I am primarily talking about not only losing weight, but losing body fat and getting shredded. That's what this series is about. It's about getting really freaking lean. Dice to the socks, as they say. So without further ado, let's go over this. I think I'm just going to give it to you right off the bat here. You don't have to watch 4 hours of this video. I'm just going to tell you right here. But most people, when they're on a carnivore diet, they probably are consuming too much fat. There could be a bunch of other reasons why they're not making progress. And yes, we could go to the calorie equation and figure out, we can do all that. But look, man, I think if we're going to go through all this trouble of eating really healthy foods and primarily only eating meat and eggs on a carnivore diet, that we should be getting lean. Like if our effort is 10, but our results are 4, something's fucked up. I work really hard at my diet. I put a lot of effort into it. I put a lot of time into it. There's a lot of cooked meals. There's a lot of thought. There's a lot of things going on. I did the carnivore diet for 100 days straight. I did a carnivore diet as a bulk. I've done it a bunch of different ways. I did the carnivore diet with dairy. I've done the carnivore diet without dairy. I've done the carnivore diet for 30 days where it was strict. Basically, I think I was eating meat, water, and I couldn't get rid of cheese, I remember. And the cheese was only on occasion. I did it a bunch of different ways. And what I found was, for me and for other people that I help with weight loss, and something that I have recognized, and part of this series is blowing the roof off of this, is because no one really talks about this that much. And again, I'm not sure why, but if we start to ride dirty in the 30 to 40 and 50% of our calories coming from protein, you are going to get very lean. I'm sure there could be some case of some fat ass bastard somewhere who can't lose weight no matter what diet they follow. But for the most part, if you're a human being and you follow that protocol of having 30%, 40%, maybe even 50% of your calories coming from protein, you will lose weight. Protein, in my opinion, is not much of an energy source, or at least it shouldn't be looked at as the same type of energy source as fat and carbohydrates. Clip that, whoever you are, scientist, everybody else, go ahead and do it. I don't care. It's just going to give me more publicity and help me become the meathead millionaire that I am many times over. So a big issue is too much fat consumption. If we look at, let's just look at eggs, and let's just take a breakfast. Let's say you have 5 to 6 eggs. It's going to have approximately 30 grams of fat. If we throw in a little bit of butter in there, or we cooked it in tallow, now we're starting to look at this meal now having, let's just push it up to about 40 grams of fat. 40 grams of fat. I'm not trying to make anybody fat phobic. Understand that I know that protein and fats come together in nature and that they're critical. And that when it comes to probably the metabolism or the digestion of proteins, it's probably critical a lot of times that they come with fats. And it's probably more anabolic, it's probably more synergistic, it's probably, what's the word I'm looking for? It probably helps with protein muscle synthesis, which can happen from eating protein, lifting weights, and steroids. Protein muscle synthesis is amazing, right? And again, I do recognize that when we're having protein with our fats, it probably assists with some of that. But again, we are talking about getting shredded. And in the case of getting shredded, sometimes we might make the mistake of sacrificing too many things at one time to dive down body fat levels. In this meal that we're having, this breakfast that we're having, the way that we're starting our day, this meal, the eggs with some butter and maybe a couple strips of bacon, a couple strips of ham, whatever it might be. Ham's actually usually super lean, but if you're throwing in some bacon, let's just say this thing has 50 grams of fat. So now we have 50 grams of fat stacked up against how much protein? How much protein are we getting? Because really, if I was trying to break down my theory and have you understand it in the least amount of time, I would say get as much protein as you possibly can get in the least amount of calories. That's an exaggeration. I don't think you should do that all the time. I don't want anybody to ever think that any of these videos are trying to tell you to not have any fat. Fat is critical, fat is crucial, fat is really, really important. And I don't think anyone should go under 50 grams of fat for any real long periods of time, okay? I said it. You're gonna get sick, you're probably not gonna feel good, and you're probably not gonna look very good. For experimental purposes, on occasion, you wanna fast and go 0 fat for the day, or you wanna do a fat fast and not eat hardly any fat for the day. Totally understandable, totally reasonable, and it makes sense. But again, if we plummet down the fats for too long, we're going to be doing something that's completely wrong and screwing up everything. Because this series is about losing body fat. We're trying to lose body fat. We're trying to shred, we're trying to pull body fat off of you quickly. And it's not necessarily just about getting shredded, but it's about dumping body fat very quickly. So back to this scenario of your breakfast. Your breakfast has 50 grams of fat, maybe only around 30 grams of protein. If that could simply just be flipped, or if we could utilize some egg whites, or if we could utilize some cottage cheese, or we can utilize just a mixture. Cottage cheese and some scrambled eggs, by the way, is very good. You might think it sounds disgusting, but eggs and cheese go together well. I think cottage cheese, yogurt, and some dairy, I think those are fair game. I believe those are animal products, and to me, they count as part of the carnivore diet. But you do you, bro. You do whatever way you think is gonna be best for you. By utilizing protein with your meals, or just protein, you're going to be augmenting your meal. So this is where a little bit of egg whites can really come in handy. How many egg whites? I don't know. I usually just fill up the bottom of my pan with it, and then I cook the rest of my eggs and throw them in the pan. And I do like a 5 or 6 egg omelet, and it probably has 4 or 5 egg whites in there. So now what I did is I stacked, or I might do 3 whole eggs. I stacked my protein higher and I dropped the fat down. You could still use your butter, you could still cook in your tallow, you could still do all these things. You could still have your ribeye later on in the evening. And we're gonna get to all of this in just a second. But I think in general that many people that are doing the carnivore diet, they are probably having 80-20 hamburgers. They're probably eating whole eggs. Maybe they're having some cheese here and there. Most of these foods are 1-to-1 ratio at best in terms of fat grams and protein grams. So for every 50 grams of protein that you're getting, you're also getting 50 grams of fat. And so if you're trying to get in around 200 grams of protein a day because you weigh approximately 200 pounds, you're also getting 200 plus grams of fat as well. I'm not saying that's detrimental to your health. I'm not saying that that is I'm not even looking at that as a negative at all. But again, remember, the purpose of this series is to pull fat off of you. The single digit body fat series. This is not the double digit body fat series. Maybe I'll start one on double digit body fat and how you can be 25% body fat. But I don't know how popular that will be. But it would be good to know, which I think we all already know, how you can get super fat. Thomas DeLauer did a video on that recently, and I thought it was actually well executed, and I think it gives you a good reference point for the hole that we're in with all the highly processed foods and all the junk that we're eating. Anyway, that's baby talk, talking about highly processed foods. You guys should know that those junk foods are not even really food. They're just pure junk, and they don't have any place in our diet. However, we can use some processed stuff here and there. I did mention yogurt, protein powders. All these things are great things that can help to augment the diet. And when we look at egg whites and all these other different things, these are man-made things that needed a little bit of human intervention to make things more favorable for us so that we can manage our calories, manage our overall calories a little bit better. As we go through the day, you already had 50 grams of fat for meal 1. Meal 2, you're at lunch, you're gonna have maybe maybe you're having some pork. Maybe you cooked up some pork in a crock pot or something like that. And now you had another 30 grams of fat, 30 grams of protein, and so on. And each day goes by, and then maybe for dinner, you have a ribeye, it's got some butter on it. You were really hungry, so you ate like 1.5 pounds of a ribeye. And again, all like 1-to-1 ratios, or in some cases when we're adding butter, we start getting, the fat calories just get up higher and higher. And remember, fat is a great energy source, but it's a very abundant energy source, and it has 9 calories per gram. And so that makes it easy to go up over your caloric intake. So we do this day in and day out, and we just end up where we don't have enough of a caloric deficit to really work with to really start to really lose any weight. And that is one reason why people on a carnivore diet may not be losing weight. There's a bunch of other reasons. A second reason, which I'll just go over very briefly, is people have trouble with adherence. So diets are only as good as somebody's ability to stick to them. Diets are only as good as someone's ability to actually do them. And if you can do a diet for 7 days straight and be pretty impeccable with it, well, that's a pretty good diet. And if you feel pretty comfortable. The problem is, if you're not eating any carbohydrates at all, and you've never done this before, you're probably gonna feel pretty uncomfortable. And if you're also listening to me and some other people, and we're talking about fasting, and you're trying fasting and carnivore, and you're leaving out the fact that it's important to get electrolytes and stay hydrated and all these different things, you're gonna fall flat on your face. 5 days is gonna feel like 5 weeks, and it's gonna feel like you're putting in the effort of your life. Because what do people say? They say, man, I'm trying everything I can on this diet, and I'm not losing any weight, God damn it. Well, it's great that they are putting in a great effort, but there's something that's missing that's not helping to optimize the diet. And here's what I see. So aside from people not being able to follow it and then falling off and binging and so on, hopefully that's not the case for any of you. Hopefully those of you who are on the carnivore diet who struggle with it are just simply having a little struggle with optimizing it and tuning it in and dialing it up a notch. The binging thing is gonna have to be a separate video that I will make for you guys as well, because that is a huge topic and that is a huge problem. I've said this before, most Americans do not need any type of specific diet rules other than to follow something that's nutritious and healthy that does not allow them to fall into a binge. So there's people that are, they're still in elementary school when it comes to nutrition, and I'm not trying to diss anybody, but the way that I see it is that there are people that have been dieting long enough where you become like a diet ninja. You can defend yourself against all and any. You can handle all the stresses of life. You can adapt. You can eat some buffalo wings and still lose weight. You could eat some pancakes and not have any disruption in your diet. You can go on vacation. You can do all these things. For other people, they can't handle any of that. And the baby talk in the elementary school version of that is that you're still talking about, how am I going to survive without carbs? So a lot of that stuff is, you can go to other YouTube channels for that. That's not what this series is about. This series is about getting shredded. This series is about pulling into single-digit body fat and also blowing tons of fat off of your body. So the number 3 way that people can get messed up on the carnivore diet is by mixing foods. Once we start to mix and blend foods, we end up in that same category that we did before when we had an addiction to ice cream, cereal, pizza, donuts. All those things I just mentioned, they have something in common. They have a lot of fat calories and they have a lot of carbohydrates. Pizza, which doesn't really typically have all that much sugar in it, sometimes can have sugar in the marinara sauce, but it is a salty, fat, carb, squishiness, gooiness, stretchiness combo that is completely unbelievable. the textures going on in pizza are amazing. Other categories of foods that would be like this would be a cheeseburger with the bun, a hot dog with the bun. These are things that have just this really incredible pop and flavor and like snap, and it hits a lot of stuff, goes a little bonkers in our brain. And I think for some people that is amplified and just through the roof on some people. When I think for me, I think I've been that way. I love peanut butter cups. A Reese's peanut butter cup is probably my favorite thing on this planet. And I think that my response to a peanut butter cup, I mean, I'm just thinking it has to be a little different than everybody else, because I do not want to stop eating them. I really, really, really super duper pooper scooper love eating them. And so for whatever reason, that food I'm very much attached to. Cookie dough is another one. I love cookie dough. I love eating like a whole freaking tube of cookie dough. Done so way too many times in my life. But I think that some people get attached to some of these certain types of foods, and a lot of times it's the combinations of things that are going on. It's the textures. Cookie dough has like a weird like crunch to it, and oddly enough, so does a peanut butter cup. A peanut butter cup almost tastes like you bit into something and there's like a little kernel of like sand or something in there. There's like a little crunch or something, and that same thing happens with cookie dough. Hopefully you guys are starting to realize, holy shit, Mark's way fatter than we even thought, for him to recognize all these things being in our food. But food combinations are deadly. And whether it's ice cream, pizza, cookie dough, or peanut butter cups, or cheeseburgers, it doesn't really matter if it's that or if it's you mixing your ground beef with tons and tons of cheese and bacon. You know, as you start to make combinations of food, even if you're doing a carnivore diet and you're doing like meat and fruit, which is a great diet, great intervention, you could overdo it on the fruit, which I know you're thinking like, you can't really overdo fruit. Well, how about we do this? How about we take a bunch of different fruit, we put it in a bowl, we throw it in a bowl with some yogurt. I like 000 yogurt, has no fat in it, protein sky high, tastes really good. 000 vanilla yogurt. Throw in like 2 of those bad boys, throw in some cottage cheese, throw in some, squirt in some honey in there. Well, now we just had this kind of bomb, and especially like for other people that are using like more regular yogurt that has other grams of fat in it, accompanied by the carnivore diet that they're eating day in and day out and having these meals that are having 30 to 50 grams of fat a pop. They're also having this fruit bowl that now has 700 or 800 calories in it as well. And so that's an easy way to sabotage yourself, an easy way to overdo it. And what I was saying earlier about how you just get yourself back to the same spot, you just got yourself back to the same spot of overeating through the mechanism of utilizing multiple foods and pairing them together. There was a study done or a research done years ago, or maybe it was even just an experiment, or maybe it was a contest. I can't remember exactly what the guy was doing, but the guy was trying to figure out a way to eat pounds and pounds of ice cream. And he was able to get through eating 5 pounds of ice cream only through one way. He was trying to eat 5 pounds of ice cream and he couldn't do it. So what he had to do is take a break and eat some French fries in between, because he ended up with something called palate fatigue. So that's one of the mechanisms that's behind the carnivore diet that allows people to lose body fat tremendously fast, is this idea of palate fatigue. You're like, I don't even feel like eating. But for some people, that will lead them to a binge, or for some people, that will just lead them to excess eating. For some people, that will lead them to want to get more and more calories and more fat in there. I'm going to end on this segment right here. What I'm trying to teach you, what I'm trying to preach to you, and if you want your carnivore diet to work for you and you want to be able to shred body fat, do the carnivore diet, follow it to a T, do the best you can on it. But I would say have certain days or certain meals where you submarine those fats. Bring those fats, bring them way down. Take them from 150 for the day down to 50. Take them from 150 for the day down to 0. Take them to 50 at a given meal down to 0. Again, I'm not telling you to eat 0 grams of fat day in and day out, nor am I saying to only have 20 grams of fat day in and day out. I think that could be a disaster. However, we are talking about getting shredded, and there's going to be some sacrifices that might happen through this. But you should never feel like shit. You should always feel good. You should always feel up. You should always feel ready to rock. And if you don't feel ready to rock, you're not giving yourself enough of the proper inputs. You're not giving yourself the nutrition that you need. Nutrition needs to be nutritious even when we're burning fat, and probably especially when we're burning fat, because we need to have great performances and we need to have great output in our day-to-day. If your output starts to go down, then you're heading down a shitty path, because now your output's going down and now your calories just have to go down and everything's going down, and you'll feel like crap, like bodybuilders do. And bodybuilders are like, it's just prep, bro. It's just the way it's gotta be. And I don't know, maybe they're right. Maybe it does have to be that way for them to be 4% or 5% body fat. But you're not necessarily in that same exact category. You're not responsible for getting on a stage. You just want to try to look good. You just want to try to get some abs. You just want to try to shred down and get rid of some body fat, get rid of some love handles and those kinds of things. And even in your effort just to get down to single-digit body fat is way different. 9% body fat versus 5% body fat are two totally separate animals. You start to really, almost cut your body fat in half from being under 10% body fat, and you end up in a completely different world. So we're not too concerned about those little finer points that might happen at the very end. Where we are concerned about it is we never want to feel like shit. We always want to feel awesome. So, in conclusion, in your effort to lose body fat on a carnivore diet, and to make sure you're not one of these people that has done the carnivore diet and struggled to lose weight, have particular days that you look forward to. You can do what people have been doing for many years, which is called high and low. So some days you can have your fats be a little higher. You can put them up to 100. And on other days they could be 50, 100, 50, 100, 50. Maybe every Wednesday you jack it up to 100. That's hump day, right? You get yourself through the week, and then maybe Saturday, Sunday rolls around and you want to enjoy some football, have a couple buffalo wings. You should be able to do that. So maybe 2 times a week you bring those fat calories up a little bit. But for most of the other meals, you're trying to really crush that protein. You're trying to protein leverage. If I had to just flat out give you some numbers, I would say for some of these meals, you want to have your protein be 5 times greater than your fat. So for every 25 grams of protein, maybe about 5 grams of fat. For every 50 grams of protein, maybe about 10 grams of fat. Do the math and work that out further for yourself in accordance to how many grams of protein you need for each and every single day. Some of the meals you might want to have your protein be maybe 40 or 50% of your calories. And that will really help you to rock, and that'll really help you to get super lean. This is how you keep the carnivore diet in your day-to-day, and this is how you continue to lose body fat and not get stuck as you're trying to lose body fat on a carnivore diet. Because I know many people sometimes will struggle and they get stuck and they're not able to lose body fat on a carnivore diet. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.